Prasanta and Drekamuni were sitting in their homes when the water started rushing in. Within hours, it reached their chests. To survive the night, they were forced to stack chairs on top of their beds and climb trees, waiting out the darkness while suspended above the muddy currents. What makes their ordeal terrifying is where they lived. Their homes were built on elevated terrain. For generations, these specific areas had absolutely zero history of flooding. The water was never supposed to reach them, but it did. Right now, Assam is enduring its worst flooding disaster in 60 years, precisely because the destruction is moving. The water is actively tearing through historically untouched districts like Sivasagar and Chadideo. The historical map of the flood zone is aggressively rewriting itself. This geographic volatility is catching citizens and local officials completely off guard, rendering years of local knowledge obsolete. Every election cycle, politicians stand at podiums and make the exact same promise. Give us another 5 years and we'll engineer a permanently flood-free Assam. Then the monsoon arrives. Over 80 people are dead. Millions are displaced from their homes, and hundreds of thousands of citizens are currently forced to live on the floors of massive relief camps. Leaders keep selling an engineering cure to this problem, but if you look at the strict geography and physics of the region, a flood-free Assam is a physical impossibility. This topographical map shows why. Assam is essentially a massive valley bowl. It is surrounded by steep hills on 3 sides, and there is only one narrow geographical outlet for water to drain down into Bangladesh. When heavy, climate-driven monsoons hammer those surrounding hills, all of that runoff funnels straight down into this single, highly choked valley all at once. Running through the center of this bowl is the state's main artery, the Brahmaputra River, which originates high up in the steep mountains of Tibet. This chart reveals the true scale of what that river brings with it. As it flows, the Brahmaputra transports roughly 5.5 times more sediment, mud, rocks, and debris per square kilometer than the Amazon River. As this high-speed mountain river crashes into the flat plains of Assam, it loses its velocity. Without that speed, the river instantly drops millions of tons of that collected mud right onto its own floor. Because the river is constantly dumping massive amounts of earth onto its own bed, the floor of the river steadily rises. This permanently reduces the amount of water the channel can actually hold. This delicate system completely broke down on August 15, 1950, when a massive 8.6 magnitude earthquake hit the region. The sheer geological violence of the quake triggered catastrophic landslides. Entire mountainsides broke apart and collapsed directly into the river, choking the waterway instantly. This single event dumped so much debris that the riverbed shot up by up to 10 feet in specific areas, permanently displacing the water upwards. That earthquake warped the region's hydrology. It birthed a volatile river that is now forced to constantly spill over its banks and carve brand new paths, simply because its original container is full. This map of historical survey data tracks that physical expansion clearly. In 1928, the Brahmaputra covered 3,870 square kilometers. By 2006, it had spread to over 6,000 square kilometers as it searched for new routes. The government's primary method for fighting this expansion is to cage the water. Over the decades, they have constructed 4,800 kilometers of concrete and dirt embankments along the river's edges. But a static wall cannot hold back a river that is constantly raising its own floor. These embankments are destined to breach during the monsoon, yet the state continues to prioritize them as immediate fixes rather than seeking long-term hydrological solutions. This persistence creates a profitable loop for contractors and officials. Because these walls are prone to failure, they require an endless, expensive cycle of repairs and reconstruction, effectively turning a public disaster into a recurring business model. Attempting to force Assam to be flood-free actively invites greater disaster. It gives people a false sense of security, encouraging them to build vulnerable homes in high-risk zones that should remain empty. The government has consistently failed to address this. In 1975, a floodplain zoning bill was proposed to strictly regulate where people can safely settle. Assam has refused to pass it for nearly 50 years. We have to look at an entirely different approach. Japan is the most seismically active country on Earth. Yet, their politicians do not run campaigns promising an earthquake-free Japan. Japan survives because they abandoned the illusion of controlling the earth. They chose instead to design their entire society and infrastructure around the absolute guarantee that future disasters will strike. Assam requires that exact same pivot. The state has to stop fighting the water and officially adopt a methodology of living with floods. That starts with architecture. We need to phase out vulnerable mud and brick ground-level homes and invest heavily in constructing elevated concrete stilt architecture in flood-prone zones. At the community level, every village needs high-altitude platforms. These elevated spaces must be permanently equipped with proper sanitation, clean drinking water access, and emergency medical facilities. Preparedness has to be robust and decentralized. This means widespread digital early warning systems sent straight to phones, and mandatory disaster management training pushed all the way down to the local panchayat level. We cannot change the shape of the valley, and we will never cage the mighty Brahmaputra. But by accepting the water will always return, we can build a society where a flood is just a season and not a death sentence.